everyone, it's Danny. Alrighty, so one of my viewers suggested that I make a video about orchids and low light conditions. Personally, I am a bit blessed with my exposure. I have a southern exposure and also a bit of the east exposure, the one corner there, and the corner behind me is a sort of a western exposure, so I do have quite a lot of light. The problem with my particular placement is that it is a block of flats. In front of me there is another block, so in the winter time whatever sun I have is blocked because the sun is just so low. Also, the ceiling is not see-through, so I never have light from above. All the light that I receive is coming from my windows. So I have a few tricks to share with you to improve the light quantity so you can actually grow other species that do require some brighter light. Okay, so this is my eastern corner. If I try to film this, the light exposure will get all messy, so excuse the lightning. Now, as you can see, I have some drapes in the window. Now, this serves two purposes actually. One, it shelters these orchids from direct sunshine. Now, direct sunshine kind of happens in spring and fall. In winter time, it is just so gloomy that I'm not worried about it. And in the summertime, the sun is way too high, so there isn't much direct sunshine. But this is still the brightest corner, let's say, of my balcony. So to improve the light that I receive, I actually use this drape because the sunshine actually falls on the drape even though it does not fall on the orchids, and the drape actually reflects it and gives this corner a lot of light. So the drapes or curtains that I use are very light reflective, and this helps me distribute the light efficiently even if the sun is falling kind of flat on it and it does not hit the orchids. So what I can tell you is that if you don't have an exposure that lets you have direct sunshine across your room, you can actually use light reflective, let's say, curtains. This is, as you can see, very light in color. It is a bit translucent, and I don't know if you can tell, it is a bit shimmery in a way, and it has a very, let's say, neutral color. You can also go for a sort of buttery color when choosing drapes. This will reflect light like crazy. If I would have blinders on this corner, I would have a serious problem with light actually, so if you're looking to improve the light quantity in your growing space, I do not suggest blinders or dark colored curtains. I actually did a test one day with the phone. I measured the light quantity. When I removed the drape, the light quantity was a lot lower than when I used the drape, simply because the drape reflects light and disperses it evenly towards this eastern corner, which in summertime does not receive really flat sunlight. In the springtime and autumn it is the best because this corner is just so bright. In the winter it's really good as well. Well, in the days that I have sun, because I do not have sun all the time. So yeah, first advice, do not use blinders. Try to use some curtains, sheer or light colored curtains that actually reflect and disperse light. Second, try to play with the depth of your room, let's say. For those orchids who actually do like a lot of light, try to place them as close to the window as possible. Even if the light will not come directly on them, it will still be brighter because outside buildings will reflect light as well. So there will be a lot of light quantity in this area and quite less quantity in this area. So in my setup, the vandas receive the brightest light that I can provide in summertime right here. Even though the sun is just so high that it does not hit them directly, they do receive a lot of bright light simply because I have some stuff reflecting the light. Now on this side, I don't have those sheer curtains because it will get so hot at some point that I'll have to shade my balcony to keep the temperature low. But the good thing is, even though this is not as sheer as the other one, it's still very light reflective. I cannot believe the quantity of light I have in my balcony, even if these drapes are closed. Simply because they are shimmery, again, they reflect light, they're a light color, yellow, as you can see. They really divert a lot of diffuse light in my balcony. Third of all, try to find a location which has light colored walls. Now, my walls are not particularly white, they're sort of a yellow greenish, but they reflect so much light. So the light that bounces from the curtains hits the wall and the wall will bounce it back towards the orchids. Now, in the past, I had a different color. It was a sort of a neutral grayish kind of color. It was sad. It was a sad color. and the light quantity in my balcony was just so low. The moment that I painted everything in this light color, which is quite reflective, it has a reflective quality to it, everything changed. Even the light in my house was brighter. So if you have the possibility to customize your growing space for orchids, go for a very light color on the walls. White is good. If you don't particularly like white, use a pale pastel color, whatever color you choose. Make sure it is a bright one. It's not dark. It's not a, I don't know, red color. Red is the worst, actually. It does not really reflect anything, presuming you don't want to make your walls black. So go for something very light. That will reflect light and even disperse it a bit more evenly, so that helps. Alrighty, now let's consider a bit the seasons. As I was saying, summertime for me is pretty hot, so I do shade my balcony. Spring and autumn are the seasons where my orchids receive the most amount of light, and wintertime is pretty sad. Last winter I had a month without sun. And you know what? Even the fussiest orchids adapted to this. I'll give you, they did not bloom so well, if at all. They did not grow so fast, but once spring came, they started to grow and bloom like crazy. And the best example are the Vanda orchids. And somebody did actually ask me if I use artificial light. And the answer is no, I don't, because I don't have a way to fix them. And various reasons, but I do not use artificial light, and I'm good with it. I'll give you that it will be better if I use it, let's say, but it does not make such a big difference. If you have very bright spring, summer, and autumn, you can get away with a very gloomy winter time, even with Vandas and Cattleyas and all the sun-loving orchids. So the topic of artificial light is not something that I'm good at because I do not use it. I don't seem to really need it. I'm quite okay with the setup that I have and the growing rhythm that my orchids have. Okay, now let's talk about the orchids that really don't need that much light. And of course, the Phalaenopsis orchids are the ones who really do well in an intermediate light condition, even low light condition. They can still bloom, they can still do okay. So of course, Phalaenopsis is a really good choice if you don't have a very bright location. Also, the Nelly Eiler and Miltoniopsis orchids in general. If you manage to have an environment which is humid, cooler even, you can get away with Miltoniopsis and Nelly Eilers pretty well. They will even bloom for you. Paphiopedilums as well don't really require bright light. I discovered they actually do okay in bright light as well, but they don't really need it. They can bloom without it. So Paphiopedilums are another great choice for low light conditions. And strangely enough, Brassias don't seem to really care about bright light either. Given I give them kind of bright light, but it's not the brightest in my balcony, certainly not as much as the east corner. And in summertime and wintertime, they really don't get much light. They sit here and it's so high that sun really doesn't reach them. All I have are the curtains that disperse some light, but it really is not very bright at that level. They still bloom, so I guess Brassias can do okay in intermediate light conditions as well. Some Oncidium hybrids can actually do perfectly fine in low light conditions, and I would just like to mention here the Bartley Schwartz, which is an absolute bloomer no matter the light quantity. For me, he just blooms and blooms every time a new pseudobulb is mature, so that's a really great orchid for low light conditions. The reason is he is actually a cross with a Miltoniopsis, which really does not need bright light, so he can do absolutely fine in low light conditions. Other Oncidium hybrids can do fine as well. It's just a bit of a trial and error until you figure out which will do okay. As a general rule, if an Oncidium hybrid has Miltoniopsis and even Miltonia in its parentage, most probably it will do just fine in lower light conditions, unlike the Sherry Baby, who actually really likes light. But then again, the Sherry Baby is a pure Oncidium orchid. It is not an intergeneric cross. And of course, there are those other species that are not so popular. The Promenia does well in low light from what I hear. The Habenaria does okay in low light, and Zygopedilums should do okay in low light as well. Although you know my story with Zygopedilums. But from what I hear from my viewers, they do quite okay and even better in lower light conditions. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't be discouraged if you don't have optimal conditions for orchids. Most of the orchids that are very popular will do just fine in less than ideal conditions. So if you've enjoyed this video, then click like and share. If you want to see more videos from me, then just subscribe to my channel. I post daily. You can also leave me questions about orchids or suggestions in the comment section below, and I'll get back to you or even make a video for you. If you click on the left side of your screen, you'll be directed to orchidnature.com, where you will find care sheets, identification sheets, and you can even talk to us in the forum sections. And on the right side of your screen, you can click to learn more about Oncidium orchids. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!